Now let's take a look at one of the new and exciting tools that's been built into the Photoshop CS3 program, the Quick Selection tool. This is actually one of my new favorite tools that we have here inside of Photoshop, and it's really fun and a really great way, I think, to make selections. And once they take this to the next level, perhaps in the next version of Photoshop, I really think that this is going to truly revolutionize the way people make selections. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to zoom back out on this image just a little bit here, and I'm also going to open up another project file. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to navigate to the Adobe Bridge by clicking on the bridge icon up here. I'm going to navigate to my Chapter 2 Project Files folder. I'm going to open up snowboarder.jpg. Now I'm not going to do anything with this particular file right now, so I'm just going to switch back by going to the window menu and choosing guitar. And I'm going to use the guitar image here to show you the Quick Selection tool. So in order to jump to the Quick Selection tool, I'm just going to open it up here inside the wand toolbox. You could also hit the W key on your keyboard. And once you open up the Quick Selection tool, you'll notice that it has a very familiar feel to it because it looks and acts exactly like a brush. So you can control the size of the Quick Selection tool by tapping on your left and right bracket keys. Left bracket key to decrease, right bracket key to increase. You can also control the harshness of your brush by using the shift key and using those same values. Now I'm not really sure what that controls as far as the selection goes because you'll be using refine edge to actually feather this selection, so I don't believe that the harshness of the brush really matters all that much. But I'm going to keep it at a hard edge brush, and I'm also going to shrink down the size of the brush because I've found that the Quick Selection tool works best if you use a small hard edge brush instead of a larger brush because it just helps to refine that selection overall. Now I'm also going to make sure that when using the Quick Selection tool that I have this button turned on right here, the Auto Enhance button. And what that's going to do is it's just going to make sure that the selection is just a little bit smoother, and it's going to eliminate some of those jagged edges and things like that. So it will take a little bit longer to render the selection when you have Auto Enhance turned on, especially for those of you who don't have a lot of RAM in your machine. For instance, if you have less than a gig of RAM, it's probably going to take a little bit of time to use the Auto Enhance feature. But if you have more than a gig of RAM, this shouldn't be too much of a problem. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to start making a selection of this object. And in order to do that, all I have to do is just brush inside the object like so. And you'll notice there that it automatically starts to select different areas that are the same exact tone of that first area where I made the stroke. So it's automatically included several of these areas here inside of the photograph. Now, once I have that first little area selected, what I want to do now is I want to educate my brush, if you will, on what tones I want to leave out of this image. This is just going to help me make a better selection overall. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold down my Option or Alt key, and that's going to then turn the center of that brush, as you see, to a minus sign, which just means leave these colors out. And I'm just going to make a quick tracing all the way around the image. Now for this particular image, since all of the background is white, it's probably not as important to trace around the image, but if you're making a selection where the background was a little bit more active or had some more colors besides just white or one solid color, then you would see the true benefit of this because the Quick Selection tool would work much better than if you just used it without educating the brush first. So now there we go. I've educated the brush. You see that it took a little bit of time to register there so that it figured out exactly what tones I wanted to not use in this selection. Now I'm just going to continue to paint inside of this object. And notice that by default, the Quick Selection tool automatically has that plus sign in the middle. That just means that it's automatically adding to the selection that you're drawing at any given time. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw around this guitar here. Just going to include all of these different little areas in here. I'll draw up to the top here. And you see it's doing a fairly decent job of recognizing those tonal regions that I want to include, and it's not including a lot of that white space out there. Now if I zoom in, you'll notice that there are some areas that it has missed, and I can simply decrease the size of my brush and just brush those areas back in. So now I'm going to hold down my spacebar key and just pan around here, and I'm going to then just paint in all of these different areas just like I would on a layer mask or anything else with the paintbrush tool. I'm just using the Quick Selection tool as just like a brush. Now if you find yourself getting outside of your selected area, like right here, this little white area, hold down your Option or Alt key and you can just brush that small area right out of there like so. So now I'm going to keep panning up because there's some areas that I missed up in this area as well. So I'll just go ahead and I'll paint in all of these areas up through here. And you'll notice here it's taking a little bit of time. You notice a little stopwatch is coming up here on the Mac to let me know that it's taking some time to render. That's because I have that auto enhance feature turned on, and this being a fairly high resolution image, it's taking a little bit more time to make this selection simply because of the complexity of all the different pixel values that it's having to read as I make this selection here. So I'm going to come up here and we'll just select the different areas that it might have missed up in here. I've also got some areas that I need to clean up, so I'll hold down my Option or Alt key again, and I'll just paint right around those areas like so. And once I have that done right there, I can try to get these small little chromed areas up here, but it's really going to be difficult, I think. Let's go ahead and see if we can add in just a few of these, just to kind of get an idea. See there, it picked up too much of that area out there, so I can Option or Alt click inside of there to try and get that more focused just on that area that I wanted to select there. Same with this one, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult to get these areas. These are areas that are probably better served to use layer masks on, or even use the pen tool to select these, simply because the tonal regions are too close to the background area here, and it's really going to be difficult to select those. So for the really complex stuff like these, it's probably a good idea to switch to another tool, because the quick selection tool is really for making broader selections for right now. I think they're going to advance this a little bit and make it to where it can be a very complex selection tool, but for now we just kind of have to stick with what we've got. So I'm going to come back down here and make sure I've got all of these areas selected in here, and I pretty much do. So now what we're going to do is we're going to view this as a mask after I clean up these last few areas here. And we're going to do that by utilizing those channels that we did before. So I'm going to click on the channels panel here. And what we're going to do is we are going to create a new alpha channel here. Just going to go ahead and select new channel from there. I'm going to say alpha 1, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we'll activate that like so. And then we're just going to fill that selected area with white using ctrl backspace on my keyboard. And so now I have that nice overlaid image like we saw earlier. And so if I pan around here, we'll look, see here's some areas with that red where I know I need to paint back out. So I'll go ahead then and we'll just paint out that area just like so to clean that area up. So you can see how utilizing this little mask mode that I showed you earlier is very handy even when using the quick selection tool to do so. So we'll go ahead now, we'll jump back in and make sure that we have all of these different areas cleaned up here. I'm going to switch back to the channels panel for a minute here, turn off that alpha channel. And so we'll just circle around here, make sure we've got all these edges. And so now what we're ready to do is we're ready to go in and refine this selection using the new Refine Edge command here inside of Photoshop CS3.